Hi everybody, we're going to go over the checkup one from Comparing Bits and Pieces. This will be how you check your answers with the quiz that you have in front of you now. So you're going to make your corrections in red pen, and if you would like to retake your quiz, we can set up a time for you to come back and try again if you did badly the first time. So let's get started. Number 1, Michael decided to make French toast. He finds a recipe that calls for the following items. You can see the recipe right here. We are going to be comparing how much egg is used for each slice of bread and write your answer as a comparison statement. So as I showed you before, I was looking for a ratio table as well as a for every statement because that's going to be our comparison statement. Since we are comparing how much egg is used compared to the bread, those are the two categories for our ratio table. And we know from our recipe, for every 8 slices of bread, we use 4 eggs. We want to know how much is used for each slice of bread, and each slice means for every 1 slice. Starting with my ratio that I know, I would scale down until I had 1 slice of bread. I'm going to start with my first ratio and I'm going to divide by 2 on the top and the bottom, essentially cutting my ratio in half. So instead of 4 eggs, I would only use 2 eggs. Instead of 8 slices of bread, I would use 4. That's getting me closer to my goal for 1 slice of bread. I'm going to cut this ratio in half again, so I'm going to divide by 2 one more time. 4 divided by 2, I'm going to have 2 slices of bread. 2 divided by 2 is 1. I would need 1 egg for 2 slices of bread. We're almost there. If I cut it in half one more time, I would divide by 2 again, and that would get me down to 1 slice of bread, and 1 egg divided by 2 is 1/2. So that's how I would use my scaling down strategy to find out for each slice of bread I need 1/2 of an egg. So my for every statement would be for every slice of bread, you need half an egg. Okay, moving on to number 2. The next ratio is comparing milk and bread. So again, same ratio table. And according to our recipe, for every 8 slices of bread, we need 1 cup of milk. Again, I'm going to use my scaling down strategy. I'm going to take what I know and cut it in half. So dividing the top and the bottom number by 2, I know that half of 8 is 4, and half of 1 is 1/2. So if I had 4 slices of bread, I would need half a cup of milk. Again, I'm going to scale down by dividing by 2. Instead of 4 slices of bread, I would have 2 slices of bread, and half of a half is 1/4. I'm almost there. I'm almost down to 1 slice of bread. I'm going to take my ratio and cut it in half once again. 2 divided by 2 leaves me with 1 slice of bread, and half of 1/4 is 1/8. So for every 1 slice of bread, we need 1/8 of a cup of milk. Part C says Michael makes a single recipe and shares the food equally among himself and his 4 family members. How much French toast does each person receive? So I told you before the test that means we have 8 slices of French toast, and it's going to be shared with 5 people. So this is just like the gummy worm problem that we solved before. How many segments per person? Instead, we're going to do how many slices per person are we going to get. So I'm going to model this with just some circles to represent, actually I'm going to use squares. I don't like the circles because it's hard to make fifths in circles. And French toast is square anyway. So I'm going to model my 8 slices of French toast. Okay, and I'm going to pass those French toast slices out to the 5 people that I know that I have. So this is for person 1, person 2, person 3, person 4, and person 5. So I know everybody's going to get at least 1 whole slice. These leftover pieces, I'm going to have to divide by 5 people. So I'm going to take each slice and cut it into fifths, because I'm sharing it with 5 people. I'm cutting each slice into fifths. Now this is going to be a funny way to eat French toast, but everybody will get an equal share. I can then pass out these pieces to my 5 people. So if I am person number 1, I'm going to get 1 whole slice, and I'm going to get this fifth, and this fifth. So in all, each person is going to get 1 and 3/5 slices of French toast. Okay, on to the back side. Lucy is shopping for her younger brother's birthday party. All 12 of their family members will be at the party. So I know party's going to have 12 people. She finds a package of 4 noisemakers for $1.50. At this rate, how many packages will she need so that each person has 1 noisemaker? So in this, we're talking about the packages and the number of noisemakers. Now I know we want 12 noisemakers because we're having 12 people at our party. So in 1 pack, there's 4 noisemakers. In 2 packs, there would be 8 noisemakers. In 3 packs, there would be 12 noisemakers, because each pack has 4 noisemakers in it. So the pattern I'm using to follow is for every 1 pack that gets added, it adds 4 noisemakers to my total. You could have also done this with multiplication, but I just listed out each pack, and every time I added a pack, I added 4 noisemakers to my total. So in this case, she needs 3 packs of noisemakers because 12 people are coming to the party. Part B says, a package of 4 fancy plastic hats costs $8. What is the unit price of a hat? Write your answer as a comparison statement. So we talked about unit price. Again, a unit price or a unit rate means the cost for one of those things. So this time we're comparing hats and how much they cost. So for my table, I'm going to use an H for hats and a $sign for money. In my table, I know that 4 hats cost $8. I want to know how much 1 hat costs. So I'm just scaling down again like we did on the front, scaling down until I have 1 hat. I have 2 even numbers, so I'm going to use my cutting in half strategy again. Instead of 4 hats and $8, if I cut that ratio in half by dividing by 2, I would have 2 hats would cost $4. And if I do that same strategy one more time, cutting my ratio in half or dividing by 2, I know that one hat costs $2. So I can use my comparison statement again. For every one hat, it costs $2. We also know that a dozen plain hats cost $3.60. What is the unit rate of a hat? So again, we're looking for that unit rate of one single hat. We're talking about hats and cost, so hats and money, and we know that a dozen is 12, and that costs $3.60. I'm going to use my halving strategy again. I have two even amounts. I'm just going to cut it down by half until I get down to one hat. If I have half as many hats, that gives me 6 hats. It should be half of the price of $1.80. If I cut that again in half, I would have 3 hats, and if I cut $1.80 in half, that would be 90 cents. And my last step, I'm not going to be able to cut in half again, but I do need to scale it down to one hat. So I know that 3 hats cost 90 cents. How am I going to scale down to one hat? Well, I know that I can take this ratio and not only divide by 2, I can also divide by 3. 3 divided by 3 gives me 1 hat. 90 divided by 3 gives me 30 cents. So I know that 1 hat costs 30 cents. So for every hat, it costs 30 cents. And our last problem, it's a 2-part question. Suppose one balloon costs $3. Complete the table to find the cost of different numbers of balloons that Lucy might buy using the rate table. What would be the cost of 23 balloons? So we have to fill in the table and then figure out what 23 balloons would cost. So I know that one balloon costs $3. So 2 balloons are going to cost $6. And 3 balloons are going to cost $9. Because every one balloon, I'm adding $3. So every time my balloons increase by 1, my price goes up by $3. My balloons increase by 1, my price goes up by $3. My balloons increase by 1, my price goes up by $3. My balloons increase by 1, my price goes up by $3. This part of the table is where they tried to trick us. My balloons did not increase by 1. Something else happened. My balloons doubled. So if I have double the balloons, it should be double the price. So if 5 balloons cost $15, 10 balloons should cost $30. And for our last one, we need to know the cost of 12 balloons. I know the cost of 10 balloons and the cost of 2 balloons. So that together should give me the cost of 12 balloons. So I know that 12 balloons should cost $36 by adding these two ratios together. So now the last part of my ratio table, I need to figure out the cost of 23 balloons. Now a lot of people did this just simply by multiplying 23 balloons times $3. Sorry, I can multiply. 3 times 3 is 9, and 3 times 2 is 6. So 3 balloons should cost $69. I'm going to also do it using the rate table. I'm going to say that if I know the cost of 10 balloons, I also can find the cost of 20 balloons by doubling it. And if 10 balloons cost $30, then 20 balloons cost $60. Now that I know the cost of 20 balloons and the cost of 3 balloons, I can find the price of 20